So I didn't vote for Donald Trump in the 2016 election. I voted against Hillary Clinton. Um, and that's honest. I liked a lot of what he was saying. I think a lot of people did. But I voted against her more so than I voted for him. And I'm beginning to realize that, well, not only did I make the right choice, but I think I don't think it would have been a mistake to vote for him. And I'll try and explain why, but I'm only 31 years old, and I can't remember a president that has done or attempted to do more of the things that he's said he was going to do when he was campaigning for my vote. Even prior to me being a voter, I can look back, thanks to the internet, at what was promised leading up to an election and what was delivered, and the level of effort that was made to deliver on those said promises. So, what did he say he was going to do? He said he was going to get rid of the Obamacare fine. He said he was going to fix immigration. He said he was going to withdraw from the TPP. He said he was going to reform taxes. He said he was going to get tougher on crime. He said he was going to do more for the veterans of the armed forces. He said he was going to push for school choice. And he said he was going to get tough on people who violate human rights. Thus far, he's done all of those things. Perhaps not to a satisfactory degree for many of the people who are demanding that we build a wall. We need the Great Wall of North America, which it's a solution. I don't think it's the solution. But name a president, name a politician, other than, let's say, Ron Paul and Rand Paul, who votes consistently with what they say they believe, who acts consistent with what they say. This is not an attribute we ascribe to politicians typically. And though Trump is excellent at playing the political game, at playing the media game, at playing the PR game, he's not a politician by definition. He's never been reliant on stealing people's money to redistribute it as a job, which is in effect what politicians are doing. We've given the state the monopoly on violence to be able to extract wealth from us, to put it to purposes that we would agree with, or that we, maybe not individually, but we as a society, we vote and voice our agreement with a policy or against a certain policy. So things that I've been disappointed in, the bombing campaign on Syria. I don't know that you would call it a campaign, but hitting the airport in Syria. I believe we launched Tomahawk missiles from offshore to into Syria after I believe it was some sort of air-to-air conflict in Syria, and instantly we're bombing again. And then within weeks following that, we're dropping bombs in Afghanistan as well, publicly. So we're still at war. We've been at war since 2001. But making a public spectacle of warfare, I think, is a mistake. Perhaps there was an intent behind that I don't understand, or that people in general don't understand, the show of force aspect of it. Perhaps that was the intent, and not to incite violence on behalf of the enemy. I don't know. But that's one thing I was disappointed in. He seemed to campaign on a non-intervention sort of platform as far as foreign policy goes, and thus far I haven't seen much in the way of drawing our military forces back into a defensive posture as opposed to an offensive posture. And that's not to say that having strategically located bases is not defensive, but we're still actively at war, and I don't think much has changed in the way of drone bombings or what I would consider to be indiscriminate killing, even though there are mechanisms in place to sort of prevent that thing from happening. Also, the appointment of Jeff Sessions. I'm not disappointed in that appointment. I'm disappointed in his inflexibility toward drug use and drug addiction, and his opinion of people who use drugs. I'm an advocate of medicinal marijuana. I'm an advocate of psychedelics and the type of research that the MAPS Center is doing. There have been massive gains in the treatment of PTSD and other psychological disorders through the use of these psychedelics, specifically psilocybin cubensis mushrooms, dimethyltryptamine, and cannabis to a certain extent, but cannabis is more of a, I guess, an analgesic, a anti-anxiety, anxiolytic, whatever it is. It doesn't have the same psychological effects that those stronger, more powerful psychedelics do, but we're seeing like 80 to 85% success rate after one or two treatments on psilocybin mushrooms with a therapist. So essentially a talk session, but with a psychedelic to, I suppose it just sort of cracks your mind open, and allows you to do what would take years in psychotherapy to get to the core of what's really causing your problems. You can vastly accelerate that by increasing the level of openness, agreeableness, and trust that a patient has with his or her therapist. So huge gains, but to have someone in the Attorney General position like Jeff Sessions, where he believes that good people don't use drugs, and has a very specific definition of what he considers drugs. So caffeine is not a drug, I guess. Alcohol is not a drug. Maybe he doesn't use those, I don't know, but the war on drugs has failed. The war on drugs has failed, is failed, and will fail. And we got to fix that. We need to start treating the source of the pain that people are self-medicating for, as opposed to treating the people as criminals. So I'm of the opinion that whether it's emotional pain, psychological pain, physical pain, people are treating something. I don't think anyone wants to be addicted to heroin. I don't think anyone wants to be addicted to methamphetamine. But when you are in a depressed state chemically, and all of a sudden you get this magic potion, let's say, that all of a sudden you go from your baseline to everyone else's baseline, and it feels like you're walking on sunshine for the first time in maybe your whole life. But clinically depressed people, people who are in severe pain, to have that burden lifted off of you, I wouldn't be able to describe it because I've not been in that position, but I can imagine just, you can finally breathe. But unfortunately, the key that unlocks that feeling is highly addictive. And not only is the chemical highly addictive, the feeling is highly addictive. So you're getting a psychological addiction and a physical addiction simultaneously. That's why nicotine's so powerful. That's why alcohol is so powerful. That's why sugar is so powerful. So I'm disappointed with Sessions' opinions. I'm not so much disappointed in his actions thus far, because he's talking tough, but his actions don't indicate that he's going to continue the mandatory minimum sentencing of people who say have a joint at a concert. We shouldn't be putting those people in prison for 10 years. We shouldn't be putting them in prison at all. Here's a fine. You shouldn't have had a joint in a public place. Keep it in your house. Keep it in your backyard. Do you, don't harm others, and don't impose yourself on others. So when I look at the scale of things I like versus things I don't like, the president's doing a lot of things that I like. He's doing a few things I don't like, but the vast majority are things that I approve of, and that I would approve of if it were someone else. If I didn't think that he was this bombastic, arrogant person, which I don't think he is, but that's a popular narrative. If I thought he was just a regular guy doing these things, I'd be extremely satisfied. If Barack Obama had been doing these things, I'd be extremely satisfied. I'd be a Barack Obama fan. So putting the person aside and strictly looking at the actions, I should have voted for Donald Trump. And I've never been more confident about that vote than I was after the State of Union address. And I watched the subsequent media coverage, the bashing of him voicing the accomplishments of his administration, and man, the Democratic Party embarrassed themselves. You are not doing yourself a favor when you are sitting, scowling, with your arms crossed, when the president says that black unemployment has never been lower. You're not doing yourselves any favors. And that's one of many reasons why I'll be voting the president back into office in 2020.